Why? We don't have to cut. Are they throwing us out? Are the police here? So let's move on. Hi, I'm Al Pacino, if you didn't notice. And I'm going to talk about a few of my films. Marty Bregman was my manager for a while when I was very young, and he was interested in producing films. Turned out he was a great producer, and I made 5 films, and that was the first of 5 movies. And he read this article, this book, Peter Moss book, about this corruption in the police department, and it was Frank Serpico.
Hey! I'm a police officer! Get over there! Hey! It's me, Serpico! Hey! Hey, I'm a police officer! Police officer! I'm an officer! I'm a police officer!
Jesus, Frank, how was I supposed to recognize you?
You stupid fuck.
Frank, I didn't know you.
You didn't know me! You fire without looking? You fire without a warning, without a fucking brain in your head?
I read the treatment of it, not the script. They didn't have a script yet. They had a treatment. And it was interesting, but I couldn't tell from the treatment. It's always the script. But I'll tell you, I met Frank Serpico. They introduced me to him. When I met the person that I was supposed to do, I didn't want to play him. It was an odd thing. Not because he was negative or positive, but I just felt I couldn't be him. But when I met Frank, I knew there was something I could paint there. There was something that I could sort of serve. I just felt it. He had an earring, long hair, and strange looking, but he had a look in his eye that I thought, there it is. I got to know him very well and hang with him. And then Waldo Salt and Norman Wexler wrote the script. Waldo Salt was renowned, Midnight Cowboy, and so he was a great writer. And so I did it with him, and Sidney Lumet, of course, was my first meeting with Sidney. It was an interesting meeting. It was very interesting. I grew to love him, naturally, but the first impression of him was he said a couple of things that seemed a bit, they were a bit off-putting about me. So I felt a little, who does this guy think he is, or something? Then I started seeing some of his films. I thought, he's a great director, that's who he is. And then we went on to do Dog Day Afternoon later. So then Serpico was made, and it was the first film Marty and I did together. And it was a good thing to have done.
Frank, we wash our own laundry around here. Oh, yeah? Now, you could be brought up on charges for this.
I always thought so, but the reality is, sir, we do not wash our own laundry.
Serpico.
It just gets dirty.
You are in trouble.
I don't care if I'm in trouble. I don't care who gets it anymore, including myself. Because if I have to go to outside agencies to get somebody to hear my story, well, where am I going to go?
You hear me, Serpico? Stay away from me.
Where am I going to go?
You just wait until you hear from me.
I've been waiting for a year and a half. What are you talking
to you, Frank.
That's not enough.
I'll get back.
But where am I going to go? It's my life, you
I think the script is first, if you want to know the truth. The text, it's very hard to, he's going to say, well, I'd love to play Picasso. Picasso is Picasso, but he's got to be fictionalized. And Frank Serpico was Frank Serpico, real person. But in the theater and in drama, you have to fictionalize it. So you take certain liberties with that. So it really comes down to the script being first, and that's why, I think. So anybody see a good Picasso script, let me know. I'm ready to play him at age 90.
What's he doing?
When you get back over there?
What are you over there for?
When you
What's
get
he
the
doing?
back there, get back there,
What's he doing? Look at him with him.
Get over there.
Go back there, man.
Get over there, will ya?
He wants to kill me so bad, he can taste it.
I'm always gonna kill anybody.
Attica! Attica!
Will ya?
Attica! 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 Attica!
I love the random, crazy, wild thing it became out there. I love what Lumet did to it, and this kind of person, and this is Lumet at his most. I mean, it's like a happening. And Sidney Lumet came up to me during the filming of this, and he said, Al, it's out of our hands, buddy. It's out of our hands. And that's the feeling that I had with it. It was just took its own life. And he knew it. But it also had rehearsal in it, which is what I loved about Sidney. It's very important to me, especially because I just need time. I'm not the kind of actor that gets it right away. I gotta go through it. And I mean, 3 weeks is fine, but I would prefer 3 months. And I think it's part of coming up out of the theater. Theater has proven to me to be a great teacher.
Now, you gotta understand something. If we leave the country, there's no coming back here. You know what I mean? There's no coming back. So that if there's anybody now that you want to talk to, you want to say goodbye to, do it now. No. Is there any special country you want to go to?
Wyoming.
Oh, God, John. I love John. I first met John at we were working for Standard Oil. We were messengers. I was a teenager, and he was a little older. And I knew from the moment I met this guy, everybody liked John. I mean, you just were drawn to him because he was such an interesting person. He was so open, and he was just the kind of guy you wanted to know because there was something in him. And, yeah. And so I saw him. I went up. I hadn't seen him in years. 3 or 4 or 5 years. And I went up to Provincetown to do this thing called The Indian Wants the Bronx, Israel Horovitz wrote. And that was the first really big thing I had. So I knew this was a role that, you know, I was doing children's theater, and the director of the children's theater sent me this script, and I thought he wanted me for another part, but he wanted me for the part that I eventually played. And we went to Provincetown. There was this big house. We were all gonna live in it, little rooms, attics. I forget the name of the director who was there. He says, oh, yeah, we got the guy who's going to play the Indian. Oh, I said, you know, who? And he opens the door to his room. I was living in the big house. It was John. I said, John, you're playing the Indian. He says, yes. So I got to know him. Then I think that was in 65, 66. And it was great. It was wonderful. And The Indian Wants the Bronx was the sort of catalyst to my whole life, really, because that's how I met Marty Bregman. Faye Dunaway came to see it one day. Faye Dunaway, when I didn't know her, but she was a huge star. And she called Marty Bregman. I didn't know him. David Beagleman, head of CA. And they came down to see the play, this little off-Broadway play. And that was the role that I always felt that I had found something. I had arrived there, you know. That was it. That got me Marty Bregman. It got me CMA and next thing you know, I was doing roles. That's the way it is, you know, that you can't tell me that it's a combination of sort of application and luck. You know, you get lucky if you. Sometimes you hang around long enough, you get lucky later in life. But I was lucky that. That's what I see. I was lucky I met my friend Charlie Lawton, my great mentor. It goes right back, and I was saying about luck. You know, you start thinking that way as you get older. You start thinking about those pivotal moments in your life, those that literally save your life, especially if you come from a background I came from. I was from the South Bronx, and my father and mother divorced, and I remember back then living with my grandmother and grandfather and my mother. But I realized only lately how much my grandfather meant to me. As a father substitute, as a person he was, such a great person. And I loved him so much. And I had my mother and my grandmother and that world, and my mother was difficult, but she was also great. you know, but it doesn't come to you till later. And not in therapy or anything else. You just, all of a sudden something happens and you say, oh my, yes, because you identify or something happens and you say, geez, yeah, I was going through life not realizing it. Now, my father wasn't around much, but to me, I think that I look at it, some people just have it a little bit more centered and their lives are a little bit more supportive early on. I was walking down Sunset Boulevard. I happened to be in LA, which I was rarely in LA, but I was there. I don't know why. Usually it's because I knew somebody there that I was with, and I saw the marquee. It says Scarface, Paul Muni. And I thought, I heard a lot about that film my whole life, and I knew that Bertolt Brecht loved the gangster movies of the 30s, the American gangster movies. And he wrote this great play that I had been doing, Arturo Ui. And growing up, I had heard about George Raft and Paul Muni and Scarface.
It's my fault. I shouldn't have come.
What's the difference? Your fault, my fault. Just so she's here, that's all what matters. Here, you load him, huh?
Sure, I'll load him. I'm not afraid. I'm like you, Tommy.
That's no way to talk. You're not afraid, huh? Come on, we'll show 'em. Here. Put it in, Jessica. Put it right here. We'll show him. Hey, look at the monkeys there. They think they're going to get Tony Camani, eh?
And I went to see it with several friends in the Tiffany movie house, and I saw it up there, and this guy, Paul Muni, was inspiring to watch. I just wanted to imitate him.
You want to with me? Okay. Cockroaches. Come on. You want to play guys? Okay. I'll play with you. Come on. Okay.
Do you want to play rough?
Okay.
Say hello to my little friend.
That's the only thing I thought of, was imitating Paul Muni. You never know where you're going to get inspired. You never know where it's going to come, what it comes from. And you sort of don't even know when it'll happen. You only hope for it to happen. It's, sometimes you're somewhere seeing a play and something comes to you. And very much like, I guess, anybody who does this stuff, whether it's writing, directing, whatever, painting, something gets you there. But you have a technique, you have a craft, and you go through your life doing that, learning that as much as you can. But the problem is, you really, in a sense, need the craft when you get inspired. As soon as Lumet got involved and talked about making it Cuban and all that, and all of a sudden that came in, and the characters started to come to me through a lot of things. I modeled them after a few things. One was Roberto Duran. I was inspired by Roberto Duran, the fighter. There was something about his fire and his thing that caught me, but it was a combination of him, the actual Paul Muni, and my own sense of, my own need to express something in it. I really felt as though that was expressing the sense of the underbelly of our world, and in a certain way, in a more flamboyant way. Well, the most difficult part of Godfather was once Francis wanted me in the film. Nobody else did. Paramount didn't want me. So that was a very difficult time. More for Francis, I remember, since I didn't know what I was getting into, and I knew that I knew Francis from before he saw me on Broadway in a play, and he always sort of took an interest in me and asked me to come to San Francisco because he had a film, and he was living in San Francisco with Zoetrope, with Spielberg and Lucas and all these guys I met when they were young, and so I knew they were doing something together, and it was a real group there. Warner Brothers didn't want me in the part, and they didn't want the film or anything. So I never heard from him. And a year later, I got a call, and he said, I'm doing The Godfather, which was the biggest book around. You know, I'd read the book, and I thought, you know, is he awake? Or he's talking from some dream. How's he going to do The Godfather? But I did think, when I heard it, I thought, you know, Paramount's pretty smart. If they use him, if he's telling the truth, that's a smart move. Because I knew how great he was. I could tell you that. I could feel it. So, and then he wanted me, and they didn't want me, and there was a series of tests. Then we finally got to shoot. They accepted because Jerry Schatzberg, my great friend and director, gave him 8 minutes from Panic in Needle Park.
I was the Babe Ruth of West 81st Street. That's right. I hit that ball. I hit the ball on the roof one time, right? I went up to get it. There was this crap game going on, right? I won $79 before my next turn at bat. Huh? I'm the greatest!
And when they saw the footage, they hired me. And then when I got on the thing, they were going to fire me. About 2 weeks into it, they didn't care for what they were seeing. Francis said, listen, you know, I believe in you and all this, but you got to take a look at the footage. So I went to the Paramount building and looked at the footage because I knew this is it. My job is over now. And I watched the footage, which I didn't think was good, great or anything, but it wasn't really bad because it was what I was thinking about in this role. I had given a lot of thought to this part because she had to. It's a certain kind of role. And I thought the power of the role was in the transition from this kid you don't quite know who he is, where he's going. And then before you know it, he becomes this leader and without tracking it. So I liked that I would help create a kind of enigmatic person.
Where does it say that you can't kill a cop?
Come on, Mikey.
Tom, wait a minute. I'm talking about a cop that's mixed up in drugs. I'm talking about a dishonest cop, a crooked cop who got mixed up in the rackets and got what was coming to him. That's a terrific story. And we have newspaper people on the payroll, don't we, Tom? They might like a story like that.
They might. They just might.
It's not personal, Sonny. It's strictly business.
What was more of a struggle was living afterward with the aura of that. It had that toll in it. And then there was even a strong one with The Godfather 2. I thought that was where that character, being that character for, you know, these are 3-hour films. In those days, they took year-long shoots. So I sort of had an effect on me in my life for a while.